Picture this. It's the dead of night, January 1991. The sky is pitch black. And then, bam! It's completely shattered as hundreds of advanced warplanes just roar overhead. It was a literal display of aerial power like nobody had ever seen before. The world was about to witness a conflict that, honestly, rewrote the rulebook on modern military history. Welcome to our explainer on Operation Desert Storm. We're going to break down the timeline, the insanely advanced tech, and the lasting legacy of a war that literally had the whole globe holding its breath.
Okay, let's dive into this. It was an incredibly explosive event, and it played out live on TV screens all over the world. But we've got to ask the big questions right up front. Why did it actually start? And when all that desert dust finally settled, who actually won? To wrap our heads around the sheer scale and, frankly, the lightning-fast conclusion of this thing, we need to wind the clock back to the start and look at what triggered such a massive global crisis. Section 1. The invasion of Kuwait. So, back on August 2nd, 1990, the Iraqi army moved incredibly fast. They rolled right into neighboring Kuwait, taking control of huge areas in just a matter of hours. Now, what's really fascinating here is the total clash in perspectives. On one side, you had Saddam Hussein claiming this was justified, pointing fingers at Kuwait over border disputes and what he called unfair oil production. But flip the coin, and the global reaction was immediate and harsh. The overwhelming majority of the international community condemned it on the spot, calling it a blatant, clear-cut violation of international law. Section 2. Formation of the coalition. Right away, the UN ordered Iraq to get out and slap them with heavy sanctions. But Saddam Hussein, he flat-out refused to budge. Now that caused some serious global anxiety. People were terrified a major war was imminent. So how did the world react? Well, take a look at this number, 35. That is 35 different countries coming together to form an absolutely massive international coalition, led by the US. This wasn't some small, localized pushback. This was a global powerhouse with one very clear, uncompromising goal: liberate Kuwait. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the buildup, which they called Operation Desert Shield. We're talking thousands and thousands of troops, heavy armored tanks, insanely advanced warplanes, and massive naval warships, all rapidly deploying and staging in Saudi Arabia. Just thinking about the logistics is mind-boggling. It really shows you the immense preparation it took before a single shot was even fired. The message was loud and clear. The world was gearing up. Section 3. The air war begins. Fast forward to the late night of January 17th, 1991. The tension snaps. Earth-shaking, massive airstrikes officially kick off the conflict. And guys, this was the absolute dawn of high-tech warfare. The coalition unleashed tools that sounded like sci-fi at the time. Stealth aircraft slipping right past radar, cruise missiles, and precision-guided weapons hitting specific Iraqi bases and air defenses with terrifying accuracy. But you know what else was a massive game-changer? 24-hour live television news broadcasts. For the very first time, the public was watching a war unfold live from their living rooms, seeing this modern military tech in real time. It was surreal. Now, as these airstrikes hammered on for weeks, you see a really intense juxtaposition in how both sides fought. The coalition was heavily relying on those advanced, targeted precision airstrikes. Iraq, on the other hand, dealing with overwhelming aerial attacks, fired back with Scud missiles aimed at Israel and Saudi Arabia. This was an incredibly tense, dangerous moment. The coalition had to work frantically to manage this retaliation because they knew they had to prevent the conflict from spilling over and starting a much wider, catastrophic regional war. Section 4. The ground offensive. Then comes February 24th, and the shift is drastic. Thousands of coalition troops pour across the desert at a speed that was just breathtaking. Look at this number, 100. It took basically 100 hours. That's it. In roughly 100 hours of ground combat, the coalition recaptured most of Kuwait and forced a massive, chaotic retreat by the Iraqi army. To wrap up a ground offensive with that kind of speed, it's almost unheard of in military history. Section 5. Environmental and human toll. But, as with any conflict, we have to look at the cost. And while the military victory was crazy fast, the devastation left in its wake was profound. Retreating Iraqi forces used scorched earth tactics, literally setting hundreds of Kuwaiti oil wells on fire. It's heartbreaking when you picture it. Thick, pitch-black smoke totally blanketing the sky, turning day into night. The long-term environmental impact was just an absolute catastrophe. And worse, the human suffering was immense. Countless civilians lost their homes and their livelihoods. The actual fighting might have stopped quickly, but for the people living there, The suffering and the incredibly tough rebuilding process had just started. So let's quickly recap how this all snowballed. August 2, 1990, the initial spark with the invasion. Months have built up until January 17, 1991, when those massive airstrikes shatter the stalemate. Then, that lightning-fast ground assault on February 24th. And finally, just days later, on February 28th, a ceasefire is officially declared. Just like that, Kuwait regains its independence, and the active military operation of Desert Storm comes to a close.
Section 6. Legacy of High-Tech Warfare.
Now, obviously the military goals were met, but those regional political tensions, yeah, they definitely stuck around, paving the way for future conflicts in the Middle East. Still, looking at the big picture, Operation Desert Storm goes down in history as one of the fastest, most tech-driven campaigns we've ever seen. By bringing in satellites, precision weapons, and stealth technology, they didn't just win a war, they introduced the entire world to a completely new, hyper-mechanized kind of combat. But let's pause and reflect for a second, because our source material hits us with a very sobering conclusion. It says, no matter how advanced the technology, innocent people pay the ultimate price of war. It's so true, isn't it? Leaders sitting in distant rooms make the big strategic calls, but at the end of the day, it's the countless innocent people on the ground who end up dealing with the destruction, the grief, and the kind of loss that you just can't undo. And that brings us to our final takeaway for this explainer. Yes, the raw power of modern military tech is completely awe-inspiring, but history keeps proving that peace, diplomacy, and international cooperation are always the strongest path forward. Thank you so much for joining me today. As you think about the incredible speed and the sheer devastation of Desert Storm, I want to leave you with this. As our weapons and tech keep evolving at lightning speed, are our diplomatic efforts evolving fast enough to keep us from ever having to use them? Think about that one. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.